Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining this week's AA-ISP webinar. So glad you could take some time out to be with us. My name is Bob Perkins with the AA-ISP, and I'm sure most of you know who we are, but if not, we're a global association and community dedicated to the advancement of the profession of inside sales. So let's get right into today's topic. You know, as AA-ISP did research over the last 2 years around training effectiveness, we found that more than 50% indicated not useful, didn't really make a difference in selling and my sales skills. Well, today we're going to talk about sales simulations. It's the company Celebration. I'd like to welcome two guests today with us. And their company, a recent partner sponsor of the AA-ISP, but they've been a pioneer in the use of simulations to help salespeople be more effective in selling. So I'd like to welcome Nick Rini, CEO. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And also Dario Priolo. Welcome, Dario. Good to have you.
Thanks, Bob. It's great to be here.
Well, look, if you're out there attending, we appreciate you coming on. We're scheduled for 30 minutes. If we run over because of your questions, we'll stay with it. And please feel free to use the chat feature to make a comment on what you heard, ask a question. We want this to be engaging and useful for you. So with that, Nick, we'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Hey, we would like to keep this webinar as interactive as possible to make it as valuable to everybody. So, you know, we have some things up here that we believe that you're trying to accomplish, but why don't you share with us some of your ideas, some of the things you need to accomplish that require you to get people moving in a specific direction. We'd like to hear from you. In the meantime, I guess, Bob, over to the right, I see a couple of questions already that I can answer. How to make simulations. I'm sorry?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'll do that as we're waiting to hear from some other folks. But how do I make simulations efficient and create quick hits as to not to be overwhelming for new hires? Great question. What we recommend is that the simulations be, you know, somewhere between 5 and 12 minutes, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And, you know, the sweet spot being maybe 8 to 10 minutes. And the idea is that you want to give people an experience that is exciting, but by the same token, you don't want it to be overwhelming, to your point. When I do simulations before the start of the day, it exhausts me. What can I do? Well, you can do them at the end of the day. As long as you're already tired. Well, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. I think that, I don't know what kind of simulations you're doing. I think that if they stay within the parameters that we're talking about, you know, 8 to 10 minute sweet spot, you know, do 1 or 2. Don't try and take every simulation that your firm or the vendor has to offer all in one fell swoop. So that would be my recommendation.
We're getting a couple of questions about how would you define what is a simulation? Define it, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Let me talk about that real quickly. So simulations can be anything that puts a salesperson, in this case, in a situation that is much like a sales situation. And there are a variety of ways to do it. What we'll be talking about today is immersive experiential simulations where you're sitting across from or you're communicating with a 3D avatar that is representative of a prospect or a customer. And these 3D simulations, 3D avatar simulations can be used on smartphones, on tablets, on computers, or using VR goggles.
That's you know, a lot of people today, I won't call it old fashioned, but the old way of doing it is kind of a sitting back to back doing the role play or going phone to phone doing role play. Is that a type of simulation?
A role play is absolutely a live role play is the way we refer to them. is absolutely a simulation. It's a simulation of a customer interaction, and if they're done right, live role plays can be very effective.
Yeah.
Typically, they're, I don't know about you folks, but when I was in a simulation, I'm a jokester. I'm that guy from school, okay? So who was always, trying to get the entire class to laugh. So, I'm cracking joke after joke. It takes all the seriousness about what you're trying to accomplish out of the equation, and you're done. One of the problems is if you're trying to score, the scoring is inconsistent. And this is something that we'll talk about, but let's get back to this. Any questions about what people need to accomplish?
Yeah, let's see what the results are here. Oh, a new sales approach took first place.
Okay. All right,
Cool.
good.
Good.
So here's push new products. Nobody needs to do that. So here's what I was going to say is that anything that you're trying to accomplish right now, anything you're trying to accomplish requires people to think differently about how they're going to address the situation, how they're going to advance the ball, how they're going to address the customer, how they're going to close the deal, establish next steps, whatever it is. You need to change behavior. And changing behavior is not easy to do. So what we've been doing to go about that, next please, is, we've been using everything from PDFs to videos and a whole variety of things. And part of our company, we have an LMS. And so we understand the value of those tools. But, salespeople and people in general, we believe, need something more interactive. Even the museums that you go to these days have interactive exhibits. And that is what we are all about. So, salespeople think this is a waste of time. I mean, I've sat through, I don't know how many different training sessions where it was not about me. And I disengaged. And when I disengaged, I may have missed the part that was for me. Okay? So if we go on to what is happening, your audience, your salespeople are all smartphone using, network connected people. We refer to this as Generation Interactive, or Gen I. And it's about how we're all thinking. And, how many of you are at dinner with family, friends, and somebody asks a question that somebody doesn't know the answer to? We whip out our smartphone. We've got information at our fingertips now, okay? And so we want things that are curated to our needs, whether it's our news, our music, our learning. And, this Gen I, it transcends age and race and gender. It's all of us who are described as smartphone using, network connected, who want to develop instead of train. So if we could go to the next slide. Daria, why don't you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so, one of the benefits of simulation is just the opportunity to practice. And there's a saying, practice makes perfect, and there's a need for salespeople to practice. But again, just share a little story here. So this is my neighbor, and a few winters ago, my neighbor actually bought this golf net, and he bought it in October, and I live in the Philadelphia area, and he thought, well, I'm going to practice golf all winter, and then, come spring, I'm going to be really good. So what he did, he bought this golf net, and he hit balls over and over and over again all winter long. Well, what happened was that when he got out to the course in the spring, he had the most wicked slice. So what he had been doing is he had been reinforcing that bad habit through this. Again, it's a simulator, but it's not really a good simulator because he wasn't able to get the feedback, right? He wasn't able to get the feedback, wasn't able to get the coaching, or at least he didn't give himself the opportunity to get that, and developed a terrible habit that, again, took him pretty much an entire season to overcome, and probably a few $100s in golf lessons. You contrast that today with, say, an athlete like Tiger Woods. It's really about perfect practice, right? I think that's really important. Somebody had asked earlier about, is a simulation and a role play the same thing? we'll talk a little bit about some of the limitations of live role plays. I mean, they are very good. They're important to do, but without the benefit of really having feedback. So in golf now, they're using things like TrackMan and whatnot to capture the ball flight, your club head speed, and the angle of impact, and all that wonderful stuff, all the analytics, and then having an actual coach. And in some cases now, they've actually built virtual coaching into some of these golf applications. But really, a person like Tiger Woods would have his coach there who can, again, look at the data, look at his form, and then give him feedback and work on correcting and redirecting. So I think that's crucially important here. Very important concept as we move forward is that it's not enough to practice, but you have to practice properly. And when you do that, then you can get the result that you're looking for. Nick?
Yeah, so, kind of an interesting thing. When you think about live role play, there are several challenges. I was talking to somebody about this today. One of the big challenges is that people have to be there. And you have to engage some number of people in the company, potentially one, but it could be 500. I mean, I've actually seen Oracle train people, and they require some number of people in the company to actually take phone calls from these new salespeople that they're trying to onboard. I mean, it's crazy. And here's the thing. Is there any control over messaging? No. Is there any scoring? No. It's just an exercise. So, and here's another challenge with role plays. How many of you have heard from your salespeople, I really don't like doing them. And I don't like doing them because, I'm on a stage. I really want to think about what's going on. I don't want a spotlight above me, and I have to, I bark, when I'm asked to bark, and sit when I'm asked to sit. I just don't want to do it. So those are real challenges. It's not scalable. And, Daria, do you want to hit this, or do you want?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about that. Yeah, and so what's interesting is that, like this challenge in sales training has been really persistent forever. I mean, there were certain technological limitations, and a lot of training was done live, and it was done with an instructor at the front of the room. And I mean, I know I've worked for most of the major sales training companies. And so what's happened now with the evolution of technology and bandwidth and whatnot is that the impossible is now becoming possible. And I think, again, like as unfortunate as this whole quarantine situation has been, it's really even pushed us further into the future a lot faster. This data here comes from Training Magazine. So this is from their 2019 study of training methods. And one of the things you're starting to see now, and I apologize that the screenshot here is a little bit blurry, but augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence, this was actually the first year that these modalities have been included in their study, and they are starting to become much more mainstream now. Again, the impossible is now becoming possible, and as a result of that, the opportunity is there to do things differently, right? You don't have to continue to do things the same way because there were certain limitations that everyone faced. These barriers are now starting to go away.
No, this is a huge development, and just a real quick anecdotal comment. Dario and I were talking today to a gentleman who's a PGA winner, and he's a golfer, a man by the name of Steve Elkington, and we were asking him about practice, and we said, we asked him, if you were playing, virtually every day professionally, you had to be on a course every single day, would you still find time to practice? And he said, absolutely. So even though he is off, he's not playing professionally anymore, but he practices every day 3 to 4 hours still. That's what he does. One other, quick comment, and that is that you probably know salespeople, you may be salespeople who have a hobby. It could be playing guitar, it could be golfing, it could be singing, it could be a whole variety of things, playing tennis. My guess is you practice those hobbies more than you practice the profession that feeds you and your family. Think about that for a second. So the idea is that we need to think about what we're trying to accomplish. What is the end game? whether it's speaking to the C-suite, increasing revenue. How do you increase revenue? We all know, and actually Steve Elkington brought this up today. We asked him what happens when he goes into a slump. What do you do? And he said he finds, and you could probably articulate this better than I can, Dario. You want to give it a shot, the way you're a golfer.
Well, sure. I mean, you go back to the basics, right? You go back to the fundamentals, and you have to just continuously, again, just examine the fundamentals, refine the fundamentals, practice the fundamentals. Because oftentimes, when you have a slump, when you're able to sort of, maybe identify the symptom. So, for example, if you're hooking the ball or slicing the ball or topping the ball, that's a symptom, and you may think, well, okay, I'm topping the ball because I'm, not sort of hitting down on it, maybe at impact. Well, again, that's another symptom. And what Steve told us is that, you really have to work back to the root cause. And that takes a tremendous amount of expertise to do that. And it takes a tremendous amount of commitment.
So I see a comment here from Dale, practice with a purpose. Just to play on that real quickly, one of our inside salespeople today said it's practice makes perfect. And, if you think about that, it's an old adage that can be applied here, most certainly. So, hey, the idea is if we can make learning fun and engaging, and if we can create an environment that is scalable, it's private, it's risk-free for everybody, the customer, the company, and the sales rep, and it's consistent, that's very powerful. But we should be able to get more out of a simulation than that. So here's how you do this. With each one of these decision buttons down at the bottom, trial, close, focus on your agenda, this is designed in such a way that there are skills that are being scored. 2 to 4 skills are being scored with every decision point, every decision button that's pushed. And what you're doing here is, instead of having salespeople read the text, you're having them think about what direction, you tell them Italian, you have them think about what direction they're going to take the conversation. And this shows you judgment. And what it does for them is it's the beginning of the process of changing behavior. The next step is to get this feedback so that I can see what decisions I made, what decision I should have made, how I could have done a little bit better, and how I can improve. Kind of an interesting thing, I'll share a quick stat with you. 94% of the people who score, salespeople who score below 80, automatically, of their own volition, return to this system to play it again to improve their score. I don't know about you, but it's not often that I have returned to sales content. Okay, sales training content. Sorry. Next.
You wonder if it's the competitive nature. And when I'm out practicing my putting on a 20-foot putt, I am not going to quit until I make the putt. So right. Is it that kind of? It's right.
It's exactly that, because if you back up for just a second, Dario, one of the things that we show up in the upper right-hand corner, this yellow dot, that's their score. And we want to get them to think about, by the way, salespeople always believe they can do better, always. And they are competitive, and you're absolutely right. And if it's not perfect, because they know that they're perfect when they're talking to their customer, right? If it's not perfect, they want to go back and try. I'm a salesperson, same exact mentality. Going forward, though, these decision buttons, trial, close, focus on your agenda, etc. These decision buttons that allow people to select what direction they're going to take the conversation in. It stimulates their critical thinking skills, but it also gives you the ability to record and apply this information to a whole variety of elements in the system that reinforce, allow you to coach, provide feedback, and help you determine where skill gaps are. And then once you've established the benchmark, you can improve.
Well, I bet you everybody's dying to hear that Avatar handle the trial close.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because after each simulation, after each of these experiences, and you know, practice simulations, sales practice sessions, call them what you will, after each one, there's a virtual coach that is an avatar as well, Bob. And that coach basically gives you a hard time if you've done poorly. And that is, people hate the coach, you know, absolutely hate the coach. But, you know, hey, sales leaders, better him than you, right? So this gives you as a sales leader, and you know, again, going back to the idea of collecting data, and one of the things that that data rolls up to is a reporting mechanism. That's how this should work, so that you can see at a glance how your team is doing. But here's the kicker. The kicker is you can drill down, you can find out who needs what on an individual by individual basis, or just based on their scores. You can slice and dice this data so that you can bring to the surface that, you know, Dario and I need one type of development and Bob needs a different type of development. And then, folks, we are engaging salespeople on a level that is meaningful to them. So I want to share with you the effectiveness of simulations. We did a quarterly business review with Purina, and there were some really interesting things that came about. One is the improvement from their average first score to the average best score. And when the sales trainer who brought this simulation solution into the company looked at this, there were, by the way, in this QBR, there were about 12 people in the room and on the phone, most of them in the room. He looked at this and he said, wow. He said, we've just seen an improvement in sales cognition. He said, that is not easy to do. And it's not easy to measure. But here it is. He also noted that people gravitated, these most replayed simulations were aligned with their top sales objectives. These are things that, and nobody told the people to go to these specific things. By the way, the group of people, these were onboarders, okay? The other thing that he said that was very interesting is that, you know, he saw that people were spending, let's back up, please. Sure. People were spending in excess of 2 hours and 40 minutes in the simulations on average. That the most played simulation was, forgive me, I think it was 75 times. One individual went back to a simulation, a 3D avatar simulation, 75 times. Why do you do that? Do you think that that reinforces the behavior? It only takes 19 times to create a habit, right? So this is how people are learning. This is how people are moving the ball forward in sales conversations. And this is how people are moving the needle on sales, revenue improvement. So again, 94% of the people with a score below 80 of their own volition return to the simulations to improve. 90% overall returned multiple times just to try it. And we designed the system, and we've done focus groups to verify all of this. But you know, we've designed a system such that people are compelled to return and play. And sorry, yeah, I don't mean to do a commercial here, but I get rather passionate. So 92% of people that have been surveyed say that this is a safe way to learn, and 91%. By the way, I wonder what the other 8%. I'd love to talk to the other 8%, right? What did the other 8%? This is not a safe way to learn. So, and 91% say it improves their ability to sell. And we have a ton of data on this, and the results are pretty darn fascinating. But I think this is pretty much the last slide, is it not, Dario?
It is.
Yeah, so what other questions do people have?
You know, definitely get out and chat in a question here. We would love to get your thoughts. I have a kind of an informal poll question. I'd love for the attendees to chat in the answer to this. We didn't talk too much about skills gaps because there's, you know, it could be anywhere from putting to slicing a ball if we use the golf analogy. But I'd love to hear from the attendees, whether you or maybe you're a director of inside sales or field sales, and what do you think are the top 1 or 2 gaps today that you see, right? It may be that reps talk too much. It may be that they pitch before they discover, things like that. It may be general communication skills. Type in right now, and let's see what you feel are some of the biggest gaps. And then I'd like to ask the question, here we go, not listening. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Empathy for the customer experience around what they're trying to solve. Will or skill, need to know that first. Definitely not listening. Getting to the demo too fast. Short attention span. You know, and I'd like the acceleration team to address, does a potential simulation solution address some of these unique to sales gaps?
Dario?
Nick, you want to take this one?
Sure. Let me, and I was reading.
His big one is kind of, you know, not doing deep discovery, not listening, getting to the pitch too quick, things like that.
Yeah, you know, kind of an interesting thing. If you think about a sales situation, any sales situation, it can be simulated. It can be put into this form. So one of the things that, you know, I've seen a couple of very interesting things done. For example, you're in a group presentation and you are presenting to a stakeholder, a C-level person, and somebody who implements. And all of a sudden, somebody gets a cell phone call and takes it. What do you do? What do you do? So these simulations, you know, there are a couple of ways to apply them. And if you don't feel like I'm answering the question, please feel free. But there are a couple of ways to apply them. One is universally. So there are certain skills that every salespeople should have. They're fundamental. They should brush up on all the time. But each one of us in our organization, we have some sort of an issue, an objection that our customers pose to our salespeople day in and day out. And, you know, we're stumped, or we try to get over it, or whatever it may be. Take those and create simulations. One of the things that we did that I thought was very powerful was we actually developed simulations that put salespeople in the shoes of their customer. So it was a day in the life of the customer. Now, all of a sudden, I'm dealing with, you know, everything from my customer issues to bad sales calls, okay, and good sales calls.
Right.
And also, I have a bunch of research I have to do, and I've got emails, and I have to make some decisions, and so these are the kinds of things that you want to think about when you're developing a simulation, either on your own or with a partner.
Hey, Nick, I noticed that somebody has asked here about will or skill. Do you want to address that, Nick, just kind of in the context of some of the behavioral assessments and how that works together with the Sims?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. More context is always better, but let's just give that a shot. So one of the things that I think we all want to do the best job we can. And some of us know what our gaps are, and some of us don't know what our gaps are. And although we may have the will, it is absolutely essential to put all of us, all of our people, ourselves in situations where we are challenged on a day in and day out basis. And maybe it's for 10 minutes so that we think, and maybe it's every other day, but you've got to go through this process of practicing. It's so critical. One of the people on my team, just as a point of interest, terrific salesperson. And what we realized is that this person needed to deliver more of a value prop in messaging around getting the customer to reconnect. And I know we're at the bottom of the hour here, but this is an experienced person, 5 years. Put him back in a simulation so that he, would go through this process. Guys, it doesn't matter how many years experience somebody has. We forget the fundamentals. It happens in every sport, every profession. I'll stop.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about kind of customizing. Well, take COVID-19 for an example. What sales reps are hearing now is not necessarily what they heard 6 months ago, right? And the objection might be, man, we're all working from home, budgets are frozen, let's talk in 3 months. Well, that's how do you respond to that? And you can then design a simulation for that purpose. Is that correct? Kind of a custom.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. No, you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, another one I like is how many companies are launching new products, or they got a new version of something and they need to train their sales reps. To your point, go in a classroom for 4 hours to hear all the new product stuff, and you forget it when you walk out, right? So you could use it for that as well.
Well, and if you think about taking over a sales organization, what on earth do you know about these people? And, the thing is, Bob, we are always using lagging indicators to try and predict the future.
Yeah.
And it would be good to have some leading indicators. And if you can put people in these simulations, you start to get leading indicators. So during onboarding, possibly during hiring, maybe when you take over a sales organization, there are a lot of different ways to use this medium.
Well, you got me interested enough that I'm just going to put out to you guys, please. I have not yet seen a demo. So I'd like to raise my hand, be the first one for you to contact, because I'd love to see this. I'd like to be able to, connect the dots on where this could help the community. If you're out there, if you're listening right now as an attendee, first of all, thanks for coming. Chat in now if you'd like Dario or Nick to reach out to you to take a look at how it really works. Just chat in now, or we do have their contact information here on the screen. Just email them or send them a note in LinkedIn. And we have a couple people here. D. Vanderper, I think you guys can see it. He's interested in taking a look. And another person, I'm in for a demo view. So if you want to capture those on the chat screen, we'll make sure that someone from Celebration reaches out to you to take a look at a demo. Guys, this was fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm really intrigued. Our community out there, the AISP community, loves new things that can really help make a difference. We've seen a lot of advances in dialers and CRM solutions and video and all that. It's about time we've seen a little bit of a disruption in training, because it's long overdue. Guys, thanks so much. By the way, get out to the AISP website and take a look at some of the resources. If we go to the next page here, there's a ton of resources. Get out to a local chapter meeting, check out a new article. This webinar here will be posted in the Knowledge Center, so share it with a friend. So with that, Nick and Dario, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob, thank you very much. And to the audience, thank you all very much for the great questions and your participation.
All right, see you all later. Good
Take
selling.
care.